People are working harder, they're earning more, they're getting raises, they're changing jobs, they're making $60,000, $75,000, even $100,000 a year, and somehow they still can't seem to get ahead. Their income goes up, their lifestyle goes up, their expenses go up, and their bank account somehow stays exactly where it was. So what the hell is happening? Here's one of the biggest answers. Their car is eating their future. And I'm not talking about some millionaire driving a $150,000 Lamborghini. I'm talking about the completely normal American car sitting in the driveway. The $40,000 car, the $50,000 SUV, the $60,000 pickup truck, the car with the affordable $700 or $800 monthly payment. Because that monthly payment is where the trap begins. America's $785 car payment. In the middle of 2026, the average new car payment reached roughly $785 a month. And Americans aren't just borrowing a little more. In the second quarter of 2026, Americans originated a record $211 billion in auto loans. $211 billion in just 3 months. And earlier in 2026, the average amount financed for a new vehicle was already approaching $44,000. At the same time, loan terms are stretching towards 6 years and beyond. So the problem isn't just that cars are expensive, we're taking longer to pay for them, just to make the monthly payment look smaller. And that's the trick, because people don't walk into a dealership and ask, how much wealth am I sacrificing over the next 20 years? They ask, what's the monthly payment? $500? Maybe. $650? I can handle that. $785? That's a little high. But if I stretch the loan out, I can make it work. And that sentence, I can make it work, is where the financial damage begins. Because the car doesn't just cost you $785. The payment is only one piece. There's insurance, fuel, maintenance, repairs, taxes, registration, interest, and depreciation. But there's one cost you won't see on the dealership paperwork, and it's potentially the biggest one. Opportunity cost, because every dollar you put into a car is a dollar that can't go somewhere else. It can't buy an index fund. It can't build your emergency fund. It can't pay down expensive debt. It can't help you buy a house, and it can't compound for the next 10, 20, or 30 years. 2 people, same $75,000 salary. And this is where the math gets brutal. Imagine 2 people, both make $75,000 a year. Same income, same paycheck, same job, same number of hours worked. Person A buys the new car. Their payment is roughly $785 a month. Person B buys a reliable used vehicle, and instead of sending that $785 to a lender, they invest it every month for years. Assume an 8% annual return. Not guaranteed, not a promise, just the mathematical illustration. After 10 years, that $785 monthly investment becomes roughly $144,000. After 20 years, roughly $462,000. And after 30 years, about $1.17 million. Read that again, $785 a month. The amount that can feel like just another bill can become more than $1 million if it gets invested for 30 decades. So when someone says, it's only a car payment, no, it's not. It's a decision about what your money becomes. You don't need to be poor to make this mistake. You can earn $100,000 a year and still be car poor. You can earn $150,000 and still be financially fragile. Because wealth isn't determined by how much money comes in, it's determined by how much survives after your lifestyle takes its cut. And cars are incredibly good at taking that cut. You need a car, but do you need that car? Now, before someone says, but I need a car, you're right, millions of Americans do. If you live somewhere without reliable public transportation, if you need to drive to work, if you have kids, if you live in a rural area, a car isn't a luxury, it's transportation. The problem isn't owning a car, the problem is turning transportation into a lifestyle. Because somewhere along the way, we stopped asking, what car gets me where I need to go, and started asking, what car makes me look successful? That's a completely different question. The status trap. A BMW doesn't just sell you transportation, it sells you an identity. A giant SUV doesn't just sell you cargo space, it sells you status. A brand new pickup doesn't just sell you four wheels, it sells you the feeling that you finally made it. And that's powerful, because nobody sees your brokerage account, nobody sees your retirement contributions, nobody sees the debt you avoided, nobody sees the emergency fund sitting in your bank account, but everybody sees the car. And that's why cars are such a dangerous way to display wealth. You can look rich without being rich. You can drive a $70,000 SUV while having $4,000 in your savings account. And someone else can drive a 12-year-old Toyota while having hundreds of thousands of dollars invested. Which person is actually wealthy? Your eyes will choose the first person. Your balance sheet chooses the second. Now, let's talk about the number most people completely ignore, the total cost of ownership. Because the monthly payment isn't the cost of the car. AAA's latest published ownership cost study puts the average cost of owning and operating a new vehicle at about $11,517 per year. That's roughly $965 every month. And that's before we even start talking about what your money could have earned elsewhere. Depreciation is a huge part of that cost. AAA calculated average depreciation at about $4,334 a year. That's more than $360 in value disappearing, and you don't even receive a bill for it. You wake up, your car is still sitting there, and it's worth less than it was yesterday. Kelley Blue Book's 2026 data makes the problem even clearer. The average new vehicle is expected to retain only around 45% of its original value after 5 years. So take a $50,000 car. 5 years later, the average vehicle could be worth around $22,500. That's roughly $27,500 of lost value. Of course, some vehicles depreciate much slower, others get destroyed. But the point isn't that every car loses exactly 55%. The point is that depreciation is real, and you are paying for it whether you notice it or not. Your car does the opposite of what you want your wealth to do. You want your investments to become more valuable over time. You want your savings to grow. You want your net worth to compound. But your car? You buy it and time generally works against you. The older it gets, the less it's worth. And then you have to keep spending money to keep it running. One consumes capital, the other can compound capital. Now let's go back to that $785 payment. Because this is where dealerships have an advantage. Imagine you walk into a dealership. They show you a $50,000 vehicle. You say, that's too expensive. And they say, don't worry, we can get the payment down. Suddenly, the conversation changes. Instead of talking about $50,000, you're talking about $785 a month. And $785 feels psychologically smaller. That's how a giant financial commitment becomes a manageable-looking monthly bill. But $785 is still $9,420 every year. And if you make that payment for 6 years, you're sending more than $56,000 toward the loan before even considering the rest of the ownership costs. The trade-in trap. And when the loan finally ends, the car doesn't suddenly become an appreciating asset. It's older, it's worth less, and now you're tempted to trade it in. That's where the cycle begins. You walk into the dealership with a 3-year-old car. They offer you $25,000. Sounds great. Then you discover you still owe $30,000. You're $5,000 underwater. So instead of paying that $5,000 yourself, it gets rolled into the next loan. Now you're not just financing the next car, you're financing the next car plus the remains of the previous one. New car, new loan, new depreciation, new interest, and potentially old debt. Then, 3 years later, you do it again and again. The compounding you gave up. This is why the monthly payment can be so deceptive. It hides the lifetime cost, and it hides something even more important, the years of compounding you gave up. Think about what happens when you invest $785 instead. You don't have to make another decision. You don't have to trade it in. You don't have to negotiate with a salesperson. You don't have to fill it with gas. You simply keep investing and let time do the heavy lifting. At 8%, that's $785 a month becomes about $144,000 after 10 years, $462,000 after 20 years, $1.17 million after 30 years. Again, the 8% isn't guaranteed. Markets go up, markets go down. But the principle is undeniable. Time turns small monthly decisions into enormous financial outcomes. The lifestyle inflation machine. And this is why lifestyle inflation is so dangerous. You get your first real job, you buy a $300 car payment. Then you get a raise. Now $500 seems crazy. Another promotion, $700 seems manageable. Then you're earning more, and suddenly $900 feels like something you deserve. Your income keeps going up, but your wealth doesn't, because every raise gets converted into a nicer lifestyle. And the car becomes the physical representation of that lifestyle inflation. You're not necessarily happier, you're just driving something newer. Would you still buy it if nobody could see it? Imagine your car was invisible. Nobody at work could see it, your neighbors couldn't see it, your friends couldn't see it. Nobody on Instagram could see it. Would you still want the exact same model, the same trim, the same luxury badge, the same $70,000 SUV? If the answer is yes, great, buy it, enjoy it. There's nothing inherently wrong with spending money on something you genuinely value. But if part of the reason is, I want people to know I made it, be careful, because you may be spending your actual wealth to create the appearance of wealth. So what should you actually do? Now, I'm not telling you to buy a 20-year-old car that leaves you stranded every other week. That's not the point. The goal isn't to make your life miserable. The goal is to create margin. And that's where the smarter strategy begins. Rule number 1, stop shopping by monthly payment. Never start with how much can I afford per month. Start with what is the total cost? Purchase price, interest, insurance, fuel, maintenance, repairs, taxes, registration, depreciation, everything. Because a $500 payment can still belong to an expensive car, and a higher payment might be perfectly manageable for someone with a high income, low expenses, and strong savings. The payment doesn't exist in isolation. Your financial situation matters. Rule number 2, buy the boring car. Not the car your neighbor will envy, not the car that makes you feel successful for 30 minutes at the dealership, the car that starts, the car that's safe, the car that's reliable, the car that gets you to work. That's it. Because boring transportation can create exciting wealth. Keep it. This might be the most underrated financial move of all. If your car is reliable, why replace it just because the manufacturer released a newer model? Every time you upgrade, you restart the depreciation cycle. You restart the taxes. You restart the tax fees. You restart the loan. You restart the monthly obligation. But when you keep a reliable car for years, something beautiful happens. The payment eventually disappears. And if you don't immediately replace it with another payment, that money becomes available for something else. Invest the difference. This is the part most people skip. If you choose a cheaper car, don't let the difference disappear into restaurants, subscriptions, and random purchases. Invest it. Because the whole point isn't simply spending less, it's converting consumption into ownership. Instead of payment, car, depreciation, you create income, investment, compounding, and wealth. That's the game. Wealth is about margin. And you don't need a $300,000 salary to play it. You need margin. If you make $75,000 and spend $74,000, you're one emergency away from trouble. But if you make $75,000 and spend $55,000, you have options. You can invest. You can build an emergency fund. You can pay off debt. You can change jobs. You can survive a bad year. You can take a risk. You can eventually buy assets. That's what financial freedom actually looks like. Not necessarily a nicer car, more choices. The freedom your car payment takes away. And that's the hidden cost of a giant car payment. It's not just the money, it's the freedom you lose. A $900 payment doesn't disappear when your job does. A $900 payment doesn't care that your rent increased. A $900 payment doesn't care that your child needs something. A $900 payment doesn't care that you want to move across the country for a better opportunity. The payment keeps coming. And the more fixed expenses you have, the fewer choices you have. That's why a paid-off, reliable car can be worth far more than its resale value. It gives you breathing room, and breathing room is a form of wealth. The question that changes everything. So the next time you see that shiny $60,000 vehicle, don't ask, "Can I afford the payment?" Ask something much more uncomfortable. What could this money become? Because that $785 payment could become a nicer car, or it could become $144,000 in 10 years. It could become $462,000 in 20 years. It could be more than $1.17 million in 30 years. The car gives you something immediately. The investment gives you something later. And your entire financial future can be determined by which one you choose again and again and again. The real wealth killer. Because that's the real lesson. Your car doesn't make you poor because it's expensive. It makes you poor when it repeatedly steals money from your future. Every payment is a decision. Every upgrade is a decision. Every trade-in is a decision. Every loan is a decision. And you usually won't feel the consequences today. That's what makes the trap so powerful. The car smells new today. The compliments come today. The Instagram picture goes up today. But the opportunity cost, that follows you for decades. The final message. And maybe that's why the smartest car isn't the one that makes you look successful. Maybe it's the one that gives you enough breathing room to actually become successful. Because the goal isn't to look rich driving to work. The goal is to eventually have enough wealth that you don't have to work just to pay for the drive there.